Hey everybody, we're back. I've got 10 minutes, maybe 9. I'll try to stop it at 9 to explain the rest of this stuff. Okay, there was a guy, if you'll notice on the first video, this is part 2 right now. There's a guy that was walking by with a white cloth in his hand, and he had dreadlocks in his head. Okay, what he's doing is driving up sequences for those who have dreadlocks. There is an issuance of drug use associated with the dreadlock. The one enemy of the spirit that is dominant root chakra from here unto the lower heavens is cocaine. And that's what his white cloth represents. I've never used the drug. Okay? Never had no interest in that kind of stuff. But by default, because I had refused to get saved, I was associated with it. Trace elements and everything else I've, probably ingested in my body and didn't even know it. People having it on their clothes, people touching cigarettes, people touching money and all that stuff. And you end up getting it in your system. God had to deliver me from it. God is the only one who can. You can't just by getting sober. It does not leave you. Once you choose to use the drug cocaine, it is assigned to you. That means that anybody else who's ever used it, they can tap right into your little brain and start causing you to do things that you wouldn't normally do. Okay? Now, the supernatural aspect of it is that witchcraft, voodoo, and all kinds of things of the occult are easily accessible. That's why in the church you have pastors, preachers, and ministers who are able to do mighty signs and wonders and say that it's God. When really what they've done is, in the past, they've used drugs to sort of enhance their spiritual wherewithal. They've practiced the occult in order to enhance their spiritual wherewithal so that they can tap into the spirit world and use it to keep you fooled by staying in the church and believing that God has shown up and done mighty signs and wonders there under that pastor's anointing, and that you shall too receive the same thing. But the reality of it is that when they lay hands on you and they've ever used that drug, then they impart the same spirit into you. And then you run off on a tangent, they disappoint you, they upset you, you leave the church, and guess what? You're bound. You're going to either have to go back to that church or go into another church. And from then, it's a cycle. God had to deliver me from all that and help me understand it at the same time so that I can tell you about it. Now, if you choose to not listen to it, that's up to you. But I'm telling you that somewhere along the line, these videos will come in handy. There's a lot of people. I don't believe the remnant will be able to access this stuff, for a long time. I don't think it'll completely go away as far as the technology and all that stuff. But I do believe, and I know for a fact, that God can restrict you from those things and drop you so far off the grid that you won't even know that cell phones ever existed anymore. God had me in such a strict discipline that I could see people walking around with new and more advanced phones every day, and I felt like I was in the Stone Age almost. And that's what happened. God has a way of drawing you by perspective, by the spirit. That's why cocaine is so bad, because it affects your perspective by the spirit. God can draw you away from this world processes and the system of things so much until you don't even exist anymore. People think you're dead. You can talk to people and they won't even hear you. It's like being a ghost. They won't hear you. They'll speak to you and be speaking past you. They'll be speaking right past you. You won't even be able to comprehend what they're saying because you'll be so wrapped up and gone and removed from life. And I can tell you that at that time, you're truly living. Because this life, with all its technology and the rhythm of the world and all these trucks and cars riding to and fro, that's not living, that's death. That is a death machine. They're driving up sequences of death all day long. Along these streets, there are portals that open up. Have you ever seen rain on one side of town and not on the other? Have you ever seen rain on the approach? I have, on the street that I grew up on. You can see rain all the way down by Mr. Burns' store. And it'd be dry and sunny over there toward where my grandma lived. But then you see that rain start to approach. That's how portals are. It's just like scenes in a movie. There's a wall, a fictitious spiritual wall, that when you pass through it, you cross over into another portal by the Spirit all day long. When you're driving in your car, you pass into different portals and out of different portals all the time. When you get on a plane and you go overseas, you are going into another world by the Spirit. Here in the flesh, all we see is the tangible aspect of it. That means we can touch and feel a plane. We can go over there and we can touch and feel the cups and the coffee cups in the restaurants, and we can go and we can purchase food items and things like that because it's tangible stuff that helps us feel like we're still grounded in the flesh, grounded in this world process. But the truth is, by the Spirit, if we could see it, we just travel dimensions. There's a reason why over in China, when we look on TV, we see them and they're more modern, they're more advanced. It's because they're in the future aspect of existence. When you go into China, you move into the futuristic dimensions. When you come back this way, no different than, going into Jessup, the little town I grew up in. They always said it seemed like it was so far behind all the other cities and stuff. You go to LA and you got the socialites and the celebrity scene over there. And they look like they're more modern all the time. They're going forward. They're advancing more. Then you go back to my hometown and you see that everything looks like it's backwood hick territory. Still got dirt roads in some places. That's because you traveled back into a dimension. And so we've got all that going on all the time, and the perspectives are changing. God is getting ready to dominate the change of perspective. And it can happen easily because of the use of the drug cocaine. Now, while God didn't approve it, he can get the glory out of it. You know how? By being able to affect change in your mind by perspective to help you understand where you've gone wrong. He'll be able to tap into your mind now. Because see, when you're wicked, as we are all born on this earth, descendants of fallen angels, when you're wicked, your mind is locked into a wicked process. And you have no room at that point. You have no room for what thus saith the Lord. But when you have given yourselves over to a chemical construct that can manipulate and change your mind, such as cocaine, then God can have authority also over that. You've given yourself up to the Spirit, whether it's good or bad. And so now God can minister to you directly. And his voice is like thunder, like 1,000 falling falls of water. That's what his voice sounds like. It shakes you to the core. And if you've ever used that drug, then you're going to be in Technicolor and surround sound by the Spirit for now. But speaking of color, God getting ready to change the perspective back to black and white. Yes, if you use the drug cocaine, that means you. God is getting ready to change your perspective back to basics and then take it back to a third world dimension. Just like the Old Testament. And so because of the use of that drug, now people have all that to deal with. But you have a divine opportunity, and I'm going to let you know what it is. Your divine opportunity is to overcome yourself. To realize that your decisions and having free will did not do anything but cause you to heap in heaven and mounds many different sufferings upon yourself. When your church speaks about heaven, they're talking about lower realms of heaven. They're not talking about heaven where the true and living God is. Where the universal Father is located. They're not talking about there. They're talking about their brand of heaven. And you know where you got it? When you snorted it up your nose. And that's as good as it gets. God has already sealed you and locked you in where you are. What you have now, you will never have more. And what you're doing now to obtain or maintain what you have will start to feel like nothing but dread. It'll start to feel like nothing but mundane, same old, boring, no life, no energy, no good feeling type of stuff. You've got a chance to deal with that, to deal with you, and the mistakes that we all can sometimes make by walking through your time of trial and tribulation by fire. Get it done. Please get it done.